Imagine a world where debates dominate every conversation, where winning an argument is seen as the pinnacle of intelligence. But have you ever stopped to consider, does arguing truly signify strength, or could it be a mask for something deeper, perhaps even weakness? Today, we dive into the profound ideas of Friedrich Nietzsche, one of history's most provocative thinkers, to unravel why, in his eyes, arguing is often the refuge of the weak. Why do we argue? By the end of this journey, you may not only question how you handle conflict, but also see human interaction in an entirely new light. Nietzsche's philosophy challenges many societal norms, and his perspective on arguing is no exception. He believed that true strength lies not in dominating a conversation or winning a debate, but in the courage to stand firm in one's convictions, even in silence. For Nietzsche, those who constantly argue are often compensating for something, a lack of inner clarity or self-assurance. To explore this idea, we must first understand his broader view of human nature and the dynamics of power. Let's begin with a fundamental question. Why do we argue? Is it to prove a point, assert dominance, or perhaps to defend our sense of self? Nietzsche would argue that at the heart of most disputes lies a fragile ego, a need to validate oneself through the submission or agreement of others. This, he believed, was a hallmark of weakness. Strong individuals, on the other hand, do not seek external validation. They are content with their truths, unshaken by the dissent of others. In his masterpiece, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche introduces the concept of the Overman, or Übermensch, a figure who transcends societal norms and lives authentically. The Overman does not engage in trivial disputes. Why? Because their focus is on self-overcoming, not on proving themselves to others. Nietzsche believed that those who constantly argue are trapped in what he called ressentiment, a state of reactive energy where one defines oneself in opposition to others rather than through personal values. This reactive way of living is inherently weak as it places control of one's emotions and identity in the hands of external forces. Think about the last argument you had. Was it truly about the topic at hand, or was there a deeper emotional undercurrent, perhaps a need to be seen as intelligent, right, or worthy? Nietzsche would say that the strongest individuals are those who recognize this impulse and resist it. Instead of reacting, they reflect. Instead of arguing, they rise above. This does not mean Nietzsche advocated for passivity or silence in the face of injustice. Quite the opposite. He valued action over words. For him, strength was demonstrated through one's life and choices, not empty rhetoric. The truly powerful do not need to convince others of their beliefs. They embody them. They understand that arguing rarely changes minds. It only entrenches positions. As Nietzsche wrote, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will often be lonely and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. This idea is particularly relevant in today's world, where social media amplifies every disagreement, turning minor differences into full-blown conflicts. Nietzsche's perspective invites us to step back and ask, what am I trying to achieve here? Is this argument worth my energy, or am I simply reacting to the expectations of others? His philosophy challenges us to focus on building inner strength instead of tearing others down. But what does it mean to cultivate inner strength? For Nietzsche, it begins with self-knowledge. He believed that most people are not fully aware of their motives, fears, and desires. Without this awareness, we become slaves to external forces, easily provoked and manipulated. So the next time you find yourself in an argument, pause, reflect. Ask yourself, am I engaging from a place of strength or from a need to be right? Because in the end, true power lies not in words, but in the unwavering confidence of those who know who they are. Inner strength. Inner strength, on the other hand, stems from a deep understanding of oneself. It is the ability to remain grounded and unshaken, regardless of external chaos. Nietzsche's critique of arguing also extends to the concept of truth. He believed that absolute truth is an illusion, a construct created by humans to make sense of the world. If truth is subjective, then what's the point of arguing over it? For Nietzsche, the pursuit of personal truth, your own truth, was far more important than debating universal truths. He encouraged individuals to explore their values, beliefs, and purpose, rather than conforming to societal norms or seeking validation through arguments. This idea is both liberating and challenging. It requires us to relinquish the need to be right, embrace uncertainty, and focus on self-discovery. Nietzsche's philosophy pushes us to ask, who am I beyond my arguments? What do I stand for? Am I living authentically or merely reacting to the expectations of others? As we close this section, consider this. The next time you feel the urge to argue, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, is this an opportunity to assert my ego, or can I use this moment to grow? Nietzsche's wisdom invites us to see arguments not as battles to be won, but as mirrors reflecting our inner state. The question is, what will you see when you look into that mirror? Let's take this a step further by exploring Nietzsche's profound insight into power dynamics and their influence on human behavior. The will to power. At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy is the concept of the will to power. He saw this as the fundamental driving force behind all human actions, not merely the desire to survive, but to thrive, grow, and assert oneself in the world. However, he believed that true power comes not from controlling others, but from mastering oneself. This distinction is critical when considering why people argue. In most cases, arguments stem from a misguided attempt to assert dominance or control over another's perspective. But what Nietzsche found troubling about this behavior is that it often masks an internal void, a lack of self-assurance, clarity, or purpose. People argue not because they are strong, but because they feel threatened, incomplete, or insecure. To illustrate this, Nietzsche often criticized what he called herd mentality. The herd represents individuals who conform to societal norms and seek validation through collective agreement. They argue to reinforce their place within the group, prove their loyalty to shared beliefs, or silence dissenting voices that challenge their comfort zones. For Nietzsche, this was a sign of weakness. The truly strong individual, the Overman, does not need the approval of the herd. They live by their own values, even when those values go against the grain. Now let's examine how this plays out in everyday life. Consider the countless debates that unfold online, where arguments often devolve into personal attacks and endless loops of rebuttals. These interactions rarely lead to meaningful understanding or resolution. Instead, they expose the deep insecurities of the participants, the need to be right, to feel superior, or to avoid vulnerability. Nietzsche's perspective challenges us to see these moments for what they truly are: distractions from the real work of self-improvement and self-mastery. Breaking free from the cycle. So, how does one break free from this cycle? Nietzsche would argue that it begins with a radical shift in focus, from external validation to internal growth. Instead of expending energy trying to convince others, channel that energy into becoming a more authentic and resilient version of yourself. This requires courage, the courage to face your fears, confront your flaws, and embrace the discomfort of change. It also requires humility, the willingness to admit that you don't have all the answers and that your perspective is just one of many. But let's be clear, Nietzsche was not advocating for isolation or disengagement from the world. He believed that meaningful relationships and intellectual exchanges are essential for personal growth. However, these interactions should be rooted in mutual respect and a shared desire to explore deeper truths, not in a need to dominate or belittle. When we approach conversations with curiosity rather than defensiveness, we create space for genuine connection and understanding. At this point, you might be wondering, if arguing is often a sign of weakness, what does true strength look like in a disagreement? For Nietzsche, it's not about winning the argument. It's about transcending it. Strong individuals listen with an open mind, engage with ideas rather than egos, and remain grounded in their values even when challenged. They don't shy away from difficult conversations, but neither do they feel compelled to prove their worth through confrontation. A practical example. Imagine someone challenges your beliefs or criticizes your actions. Your instinct might be to defend yourself or argue your point, but what if instead you paused and reflected? What if, rather than reacting, you observed the situation with self-awareness and chose to respond in a way that aligned with your deeper values? By shifting from reaction to reflection, we cultivate true inner strength, the kind that needs no validation, no approval, and no unnecessary conflict. That is the essence of Nietzsche's philosophy: to rise above the noise, master oneself, and live with authenticity. Self-overcoming. Instead of reacting impulsively, what if you used the moment to examine your own assumptions? To ask yourself whether the criticism holds any truth, or to simply let the comment pass without feeling the need to respond. This is not passivity. It is a demonstration of strength and self-control. It shows that you are not easily shaken by external forces and that your sense of self-worth does not depend on the opinions of others. Nietzsche's insights have profound implications for how we approach conflict resolution. Rather than viewing disagreements as battles to be won, we can see them as opportunities for growth, both for ourselves and for those we interact with. This shift in perspective has the power to transform not only our personal relationships, but also the broader social and cultural dynamics we navigate. By prioritizing understanding over ego, we create a space for dialogue that is constructive rather than destructive. As we move forward, let's take a moment to reflect. How do these ideas resonate with our own experiences? Have you ever found yourself caught in an argument that felt more about proving a point than seeking the truth? What did that experience reveal about your own insecurities or desires? And how might your life change if you approach such situations with Nietzsche's philosophy in mind? The beauty of Nietzsche's teachings lies in their timeless relevance. Even in today's fast-paced, hyper-connected world, his call to focus on self-mastery and authenticity remains as powerful as ever. He invites us to step back from the noise, examine our motives, and embrace the challenge of living a life that aligns with our deepest values. And yet, we've only scratched the surface. Nietzsche's philosophy offers even deeper insights into the nature of human interaction, the dynamics of power, and the pursuit of a meaningful life. As we continue, we will explore how his ideas can help us not only navigate conflicts, but transcend them, leading to a greater sense of purpose and fulfillment. Challenge and transformation. To truly grasp Nietzsche's perspective on the futility of arguing, we must delve deeper into his concept of self-overcoming. This principle is one of the cornerstones of his philosophy and a recurring theme throughout his works. For Nietzsche, life is not a static state but a continuous process of growth, challenge, and transformation. In his view, true strength comes from the ability to overcome not just external obstacles, but also internal limitations, fear, doubt, and the ego's incessant need for validation. When we engage in arguments, especially those driven by ego, we often lose sight of this higher goal. The energy spent trying to prove ourselves right could be better invested in self-improvement, understanding others, or refining our perspectives. Nietzsche challenges us to redirect our focus from seeking external approval to cultivating inner resilience. The path of self-overcoming is not about winning debates. It is about transcending the need for them altogether. It is about channeling our energy toward growth, wisdom, and authenticity. By embracing this philosophy, we not only liberate ourselves from the cycle of conflict, but also step into a more profound and fulfilling way of engaging with the world. Resentment. Nietzsche's writings remind us that the most profound battles are not fought with words, but within ourselves. One of his most provocative ideas is his critique of morality as a tool of the weak. He argued that traditional moral systems often arise from resentment, a deep-seated resentment of the powerful by those who feel powerless. This resentment leads to the creation of moral frameworks that prioritize meekness, submission, and conformity over strength, ambition, and individualism. In this context, arguments can be seen as an extension of this dynamic, an attempt by the weak to impose their values on others rather than rising above their limitations. This raises an important question: how can we engage with others without falling into the trap of argumentation? Nietzsche would suggest that the answer lies in the art of dialogue. Dialogue. Unlike arguments, which are adversarial and aimed at winning, dialogues are collaborative and aimed at understanding. In a dialogue, both parties approach the conversation with humility and a willingness to learn. They are not trying to assert dominance, but to explore ideas together. Take, for example, a disagreement between two friends about a deeply held belief. In an argument, each friend would dig in their heels, refusing to budge and escalating the tension. But in a dialogue, they might ask each other questions, share their experiences, and seek common ground. The result is not only a deeper understanding of each other, but also personal growth for both individuals. Nietzsche's disdain for arguing is not a call to avoid conflict altogether. Conflict, when approached constructively, can be a powerful catalyst for growth. But he challenges us to rise above petty disputes and focus on what truly matters: the pursuit of excellence, authenticity, and a life lived on our terms. This requires a shift in mindset, from seeing others as adversaries to seeing them as fellow travelers on the journey of life. To put this into practice, consider Nietzsche's idea of the eternal recurrence. He asks us to imagine living our lives over and over again, with every moment repeating infinitely. This thought experiment forces us to confront the choices we make and the values we uphold. Would you want to spend eternity locked in trivial arguments, or would you rather devote your life to something more meaningful? This perspective can be transformative. It reminds us that time is our most precious resource, and that every moment spent arguing is a moment lost to more fulfilling pursuits. Instead of engaging in fruitless debates, we can choose to invest our energy in creating, learning, and connecting with others on a deeper level. Nietzsche's philosophy also challenges us to reconsider our relationship with truth. He famously declared, "There are no facts, only interpretations." This does not mean that truth is meaningless, but that it is always shaped by perspective. When we argue, we often assume that our perspective is the only valid one, dismissing others as wrong or misguided. By embracing Nietzsche's insights, we can move beyond the need to argue and instead seek to understand, not only others but also ourselves. In doing so, we step closer to the path of self-overcoming, where true strength is found not in words, but in the way we choose to live. The power of silence. Nature invites us to embrace the complexity of truth and recognize that multiple perspectives can coexist. This shift in perspective can profoundly change how we approach disagreements. Instead of perceiving them as threats to our worldview, we can see them as opportunities to expand our understanding. We can listen without defensiveness, question without hostility, and learn without fear. Yet, nature's teachings go even deeper. They challenge us not only to transcend arguments, but to transcend ourselves. This is the essence of self-overcoming, the relentless pursuit of becoming more than we are. It is about shedding the layers of fear, doubt, and ego that hold us back, and embracing the courage to live authentically. As we near the end of this section, consider the power of silence in the face of conflict. Nature believed that silence could be a form of strength, a refusal to be drawn into the pettiness of argumentation. This is not the silence of submission, but the silence of self-assuredness, the silence of someone who knows their worth and does not need to prove it. Reflect on this the next time you are tempted to argue. Pause and ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve? Is this moment an opportunity for growth, or am I merely reacting to my ego's demands? Nature's philosophy invites us to choose the path of strength, wisdom, and self-overcoming, even when it is the harder path. As we prepare to delve into the final layer of Nietzsche's ideas, we will explore how his philosophy offers not just a critique of arguing, but a blueprint for living a more purposeful and fulfilling life. The insights we uncover could transform not only how we interact with others, but also how we view ourselves and the world around us. At the culmination of Nietzsche's perspective on arguing, we are left with one of his most profound insights. Strength is not about overpowering others, it is about mastering oneself. This mastery goes beyond merely avoiding arguments. It is about living in a way that reflects inner clarity, purpose, and resilience. Nietzsche believed that true strength is quiet, unwavering, and deeply rooted in an individual's ability to rise above the noise of the world. To fully understand this, let us revisit Nietzsche's concept of the Overman. The Overman represents the pinnacle of human potential, a person who has transcended societal expectations, overcome personal limitations, and embraced life in all its complexity. For Nietzsche, the Overman does not engage in arguments because they have no need to. Their life is their argument. Their actions, values, and achievements speak louder than words ever could. In today's world, this idea may feel counterintuitive. We live in an age of constant communication, where opinions are shared, debated, and dissected at lightning speed. Social media, news platforms, and public discourse often prioritize volume over depth, making it easy to mistake loudness for strength. But Nietzsche's philosophy challenges us to step back from this chaos and focus on what truly matters, our own journey of growth and self-discovery. So how can we apply Nietzsche's wisdom to our daily lives? First, we must recognize that not every disagreement requires our participation. When faced with a potential argument, we can ask ourselves, is this truly worth my energy? Does engaging in this debate align with my values and goals, or is it merely a distraction? By embracing the power of silence and self-mastery, we move closer to the Overman, not through words, but through the undeniable truth of our actions. Applying Nietzsche's wisdom, Nietzsche believed that choosing when and how to engage is a hallmark of strength. It demonstrates that we are not slaves to our impulses, but masters of our actions. Second, we can strive to approach disagreements with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Instead of trying to prove our point, we can seek to understand the other person's perspective. This does not mean abandoning our beliefs, but being open to the possibility that we might learn something new or see the world in a different way. Nietzsche valued intellectual courage, the willingness to question one's own assumptions and embrace complexity. Third, we can focus on embodying our values rather than arguing for them. This means living in a way that reflects what we stand for, even in the face of opposition. Nietzsche believed that authenticity is far more powerful than rhetoric. When we live authentically, we inspire others not through words but through the example we set. Let's bring this back to Nietzsche's larger vision of life. At its core, his philosophy is about embracing the challenges and uncertainties of existence with courage and creativity. He believed that life is not a problem to be solved, but a canvas on which to create meaning. Arguing, in this context, is a distraction from the real work of life, the work of becoming who we are meant to be. One of Nietzsche's most famous ideas is the concept of amor fati, or love of fate. This is the idea that we should embrace everything that happens to us, the joys and the sorrows, the successes and the failures, as necessary parts of our journey. By adopting this mindset, we can approach conflicts with a sense of equanimity. Instead of seeing disagreements as obstacles, we can see them as opportunities to grow, learn, and strengthen our character. This brings us to perhaps the most powerful lesson of all, the idea that strength is not about avoiding conflict, but about transforming it. When we approach disagreements with wisdom, humility, and a commitment to growth, we can turn even the most challenging interactions into moments of transformation. We can rise above the petty need to win and instead focus on what truly matters, building relationships, fostering understanding, and living authentically. Conclusion. As we close this journey into Nietzsche's philosophy, let us reflect on the deeper truths he offers. Arguing, as he saw it, is often a sign of weakness, not because it is inherently wrong, but because it distracts us from the greater task of self-overcoming. True strength lies not in dominating others, but in mastering ourselves. It is found in the courage to live authentically, the humility to question our assumptions, and the wisdom to focus on what truly matters. So, the next time you find yourself tempted to argue, pause and consider Nietzsche's words. Ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve? What does this moment reveal about my own insecurities or desires? How can I use this experience to grow, to learn, and to become a stronger, more authentic version of myself? In the end, Nietzsche's philosophy is not about avoiding conflict, but about transcending it. It is a call to rise above the noise, to embrace the challenges of life with courage and creativity, and to live in a way that reflects our highest potential. It is an invitation to become the architects of our own destiny, the creators of our own meaning, and the masters of our own lives. And perhaps that is the ultimate lesson Nietzsche offers us, that the greatest argument we can ever make is not with words, but with the lives we choose to live. Thanks for looking.